There is something Australia reveals more gently in its small towns than almost anywhere else, not because they try to impress you, but because they do not. They do not need giant skylines, famous landmarks, or loud reputations. Their beauty lives somewhere quieter, in the shape of a main street, in the warmth of a bakery window, in the way old buildings hold afternoon light, and in the way the surrounding land seems to belong naturally to everyday life. Small-town Australia changes the pace of your attention. You stop rushing. You notice more. A pub corner that looks unchanged for decades. Trees arching over a quiet road. A veranda, a weathered sign, a church steeple, a local cafe, a patch of open sky that feels somehow larger than it did in the city. These places do not compete for your attention. They invite it. And that is why they matter. Because in a country known for distance, spectacle, and natural scale, some of the deepest feelings come from places built at a human scale, places where beauty is not manufactured. It is simply lived. You begin in Barrie, where small-town beauty feels immediately visible. Tree-lined streets, heritage shop fronts, inviting cafes, and green countryside nearby all seem to gather into one place with almost effortless charm. Barrie does not feel accidental. It feels cared for. It feels like a town that has kept its identity without freezing itself in time. You imagine walking slowly past old facades, soft afternoon light falling across the main street, and the easy rhythm of a place where people still seem to have time for one another. That is the beauty of towns like this. They remind you that atmosphere is not a luxury. It is part of daily life. Barrie opens this episode well because it shows you that small-town Australia can feel elegant without becoming distant, and welcoming without losing character. Then you arrive in Maldon, and the feeling becomes more historical, more still, and somehow even more intact. This is the kind of town where the past is not a theme. It is part of the physical fabric of the place. Streets, buildings, and proportions all seem to carry memory in a very visible way. You imagine broad country light, beautifully preserved shop fronts, old signs, and the quiet confidence of a town that has not rushed to modernize away its soul. Maldon feels almost like a conversation between Gold Rush history and present-day calm. Not frozen, but preserved with dignity. And that is what makes it beautiful. It reminds you that small towns do not need reinvention to stay relevant. Sometimes what makes them powerful is exactly their ability to remain themselves. Then the road takes you to Deloraine, where the town feels softer, greener, and more deeply woven into the landscape around it. This is the kind of place where river, hills, trees, and town life seem to sit in balance. Nothing feels forced. Nothing feels overbuilt. The beauty comes from the way everything fits together. You imagine a quiet river edge, artful little details, heritage character, and the kind of town where the natural surroundings are never far from view. Deloraine feels gentle, but not weak. It feels creative, but grounded. It carries that rare feeling of being both peaceful and quietly alive. Small-town Australia often reveals itself in exactly this way. Not through drama, but through harmony. Then the atmosphere shifts again in Montville, where small-town Australia rises into the hills and becomes more elevated, leafy, and almost storybook in mood. You imagine mountain air, village character, quiet shop fronts, subtropical greenery, and lookouts where the horizon opens beautifully in the distance. Montville feels intimate, but it also feels lifted. There is something about being in a small town above the coastline, surrounded by lush landscape that changes the emotional tone. It makes the town feel both grounded and dreamlike at once. And that is why it belongs here. Because small-town beauty in Australia is not one mood. Sometimes it is country, sometimes it is coastal, sometimes it is high in the hills, where the air itself seems to soften everything. Then you come to Hahndorf, where the character of the town feels both local and layered with history. Tree-lined streets, old buildings, and village energy give it a strong identity from the moment you imagine walking through it. It feels established. It feels lived in. It feels like a place that still enjoys being itself. You picture Main Street charm, generous shade, heritage facades, and a pace that invites wandering instead of rushing. Hahndorf reminds you that small-town beauty is often strongest, where identity is clear, where the town does not feel generic, where the street itself tells you that this place has a history, a rhythm, and a memory of its own. That is what turns a town from pleasant into unforgettable. Then the light becomes drier and more open in Burra, where the beauty feels quieter, harder, and more historic in a very South Australian way. This is the kind of town where stone, dust, sky, and silence all seem to belong together. Burra does not charm you with softness. It stays with you through atmosphere. You imagine broad streets, old stone buildings, mining-era presence, and the kind of stillness that makes history feel close. Burra reminds you that not all beautiful small towns feel lush or polished. Some feel sparse, sunlit, and honest. Their beauty is not decorative. It comes from texture, endurance, and the way the landscape around them has shaped everything. That too is part of real Australia. Then you move west to Guildford, where small-town beauty exists right at the edge of a larger city, yet somehow still manages to hold on to its own slower rhythm. This is one of those places that proves a town does not need great distance to feel separate. It only needs strong character. You imagine old buildings, broad streets, river country atmosphere nearby, and the subtle confidence of a place that has grown older without losing its identity. Guildford feels established rather than trendy. That gives it weight. It gives it presence. Small-town Australia often surprises you this way. Sometimes the places that feel most distinct are not always the most remote. They are simply the ones that have refused to become anonymous. Then you arrive in Millthorpe, and the beauty becomes more rural, more intimate, and quietly refined. This is a town where proportions matter. The street feels just right. The buildings feel just right. The countryside around it seems to hold the town gently rather than dominate it. You imagine cool climate air, heritage shop fronts, a beautifully scaled main street, and the sense that everything here has been allowed to remain small without becoming insignificant. That is one of the great lessons of small-town Australia. Small does not mean lesser. It often means more concentrated, more personal, more exact in its feeling. Millthorpe belongs here because it shows how subtle beauty can become deeply memorable when nothing is overdone. Then you continue to Clunes, another town where history has not disappeared into the background. You imagine broad streets, strong facades, and the kind of Goldfields character that still gives the town a visible backbone. Clunes feels proud without being loud. It has shape. It has weight. It has an old-world country stillness that makes you slow down the moment you picture it. This is a town where the built environment matters. The architecture is not decoration. It creates the entire emotional tone of the place. That is why towns like this become so cinematic. They already know how to hold light, shadow, scale, and silence. And that is often where real beauty begins. In places that do not need embellishment because they already carry form and memory so naturally. Finally, you arrive in Evandale, and the episode closes on a beautifully quiet note. This is the kind of town where stillness feels preserved. Wide village streets, historic facades, open space, and a sense of old-world order all come together in a way that feels almost timeless. You imagine cool air, soft country light, and a town that has never needed to become busy in order to matter. Evandale feels dignified. It feels measured. It feels like the kind of place where the beauty is not trying to catch you quickly. It expects you to slow down enough to notice it properly. And that is the perfect ending for an episode like this. Because small-town Australia is not about spectacle. It is about attention. The deeper kind. The kind that sees beauty not only in what is famous, but in what is quietly, enduringly real. And now, when you think of small-town Australia, the image becomes much richer. It includes Barrie, Maldon, Deloraine, Montville, Hahndorf, Burra, Guildford, Millthorpe, Clunes, and Evandale. 10 towns, 10 different moods. 10 different ways beauty becomes visible when life is lived at a smaller, slower, more human scale. Some of these places feel leafy and welcoming. Some feel historical and still. Some feel artistic, rural, elevated, or sunlit and sparse. But all of them remind you of the same truth. Real beauty does not always begin where things are biggest. Often it begins where attention becomes more intimate, where place still has character, and where the street in front of you still feels like it belongs fully to itself. That is where small-town Australia stays with you. In the light, the silence, the buildings, the rhythm, and the feeling that these places were never trying to become unforgettable. They simply are. If this journey spoke to you, stay with Discover Australia deeply as you continue exploring Australia beyond the surface, one meaningful place at a time.